Welcome to Off My Chest, where I let loose and rant about the things that really get on my nerves. Let's dive in and get some stuff off my chest. The topic today is near and dear to my heart. Me and my wife just purchased a house about 2 months ago, so this will be all about the home buying process. To start, this will be completely unscripted and whatever comes to my mind. The home buying process is extremely daunting, especially for first-time home buyers, which is what we found out. The process isn't as hard as we thought it'd be. You're looking for a house. You finally find one. You put in an offer. Next thing you know, you've been outbid, and you've blown your budget. Now you have to deal with the frustrations of having to either increase your budget or look for another house. While it doesn't sound as bad as you might think, it's still not fun. You have about 30 minutes to look at a house, and you get emotionally attached. There's no stopping it. Like this house we wanted to look at. I found it on Zillow at about 11 p.m., sitting at work. I text my realtor saying, hey, can we go look at this house tomorrow? She texts me back, sure, let me get a hold of the other realtor. And not even an hour later, I get a response from my realtor saying the house just went under contract. Keep in mind, this house was on the market for 30 days, just long enough for me to find it and want to look at it, until it went under contract and was subsequently sold. Not a big deal. There are plenty of homes on the market. We didn't even get to look at that one. But another big issue is being outbid. We looked at a house we were extremely excited about in an area we would have loved to live in, which is ironic because it's right across the street from where we bought our house. This home was a previous rental and foreclosed on. Not in great shape. Considerably worse than our house we bought. We put in an offer, and the next day had found out we were outbid by $20,000. This was 10% of the original asking price. But as a first-time home buyer, your budgets are usually pretty low, as you don't have access to the equity of selling a previous house. Not saying that's a horrible thing, as the home market is generally pretty cutthroat. Now, all things considered, this was a good thing. We continued looking for about 2 months afterward. After 2 months of looking, morale is not high. But while we were out of state, taking a vacation, we saw our current home for sale. We scheduled a viewing. It was perfect. A bay window, a ranch, a decent amount of land, and out of the city. That Monday rolls around, and we finally get back to look at it. It was everything we could have ever dreamed of. We put in an offer on the spot. The next day, while sitting at work, I get a text from my realtor. They had sent a counteroffer. The original contract that I specified wanted closing costs paid fully by the seller. I never expected to get this. But, to my surprise, the counteroffer came back saying they would pay half our closing costs. I text my wife and let her know what was going on. We were completely elated. We couldn't believe what I'd just read. We were finally under contract. Now, the fun part starts. After you go under contract, you usually have to go through financial vetting, underwriting, etc. But before all that, you start with inspections. These are typically paid out of pocket, and depending on what you get inspected, can cost a pretty penny. For us, and what I assume most other first-time home buyers, money was kind of tight, as we were expecting $10,000 to $15,000 in closing costs. So, not only are you worried about making sure you have enough money to cover closing costs, you now have to deal with paying for inspections, title searches, and everything else that comes with it. The entire process is very expensive from start to finish. We also had to get our septic tank inspected as we have no access to public sewage. We're about 30 minutes outside the city. You only have about a week to get every inspection scheduled and done during the inspection phase. But after that, you give your realtor the green light or the red light, saying that you want to go ahead with the purchase, or you would like to look somewhere else. Everything came back in perfect shape. So we move on to the next part, where a loan officer gets to know your finances better than you do. During this part, called underwriting, the banks use a third party known as an underwriter to go through all of your debts and income, as well as bank statements. This is the part that was most frustrating and worrisome for me. You turn all of this stuff in, and they go radio silent for about a week or so. The anxiety that builds is unimaginable. After about a week, we did end up hearing back. We needed to turn more stuff in. Now, keep in mind, we're still paying for an apartment at this point, where we have to give a 60-day notice before move out. After some back and forth, the underwriters came back and said that we were good to go to the next step. Your mileage may vary during the underwriting phase. My sister took much longer than we did, but hearing that was the second best news we had gotten that month. After the long and arduous wait, we finally started getting pre-closing documents. These documents typically give you an idea on what you're going to be paying out of pocket during the closing process. They also list out property taxes and an estimated home insurance quote. We got about 10 different pre-closing documents with different numbers. They typically aren't final until the last couple days before you actually sign to close. This is where the next annoying part started. You can't go online and get a homeowner's insurance quote. You have to find an insurance agent to send one in. This, I believe, was a Thursday afternoon. After about 30 minutes of trying to find an insurance agent, I finally found one. Next came the most boring phone conversation I've ever had in my entire life. About an hour of talking about policies and coverages, all just so I can get it sent in and get the mortgage process moving on further. We finally get it done and get it sent in, and now we waited some more. But good news, after some more waiting and some more underwriting, we finally get our clear to close. Up until this point, it'd been about 25 days worth of back and forth and waiting. Great news, except for the part where we were less than 30 days before our lease ended, and we were still required to give a 60-day notice of move out, as I didn't want to give a notice to move out until the deal was almost final, as hundreds of different things could have ended up screwing this deal over. But a few days before closing, I sent in our notice to move out. This felt like an eternity. We were finally going to be homeowners. We didn't feel like driving the 45 minutes to the office to close, so we did it in an Olive Garden. All in all, the closing process took about 20 minutes of paperwork signing, so not nearly as bad as what everyone had said. It was, however, the most expensive trip to Olive Garden we've ever had. We get everything signed, and it's finally ours. Now we just have to go get the keys. We ended up owing $13,000 between our down payment and our closing costs. We ended up putting 3% down. Everyone says, oh, you have to put 20% down to avoid PMI. I don't know any first-time home buyers that have that kind of cash laying around. Only 7 out of that 13,000 ended up being for our down payment. The rest of that was paperwork costs and prepaying property tax. Only 7 of that 13 went to our down payment. The rest was prepaying homeowners insurance and property tax and paperwork fees, which I think is an insane amount for paperwork fees. I always see people complaining about the down payment costs. It turns out that that's only half of what you're going to be paying, including everything else. Not to mention that property tax and your homeowner's insurance will never go down in price. So, while our rent did increase 50% over 3 years, which is absolutely insane, we now have to deal with rising property taxes and homeowners insurance. But at least it's better than paying a landlord. But before we even made our first mortgage payment, our mortgage had been sold. Now I had to make a different account with a bank I'd never heard of. This is where things got aggravating. So I make an account and it doesn't show anything for about 3 weeks. I get a letter in the mail saying that I need to send them proof of insurance. So they bought my mortgage out and now I have to work. You would think it would be as easy as just getting a copy and calling the insurance company to be like, hey, can you update this for me? No. I had to find a different agent because my agent wasn't answering his phone to amend this and get it sent over. This took about an hour of trying to find someone who was willing to do it for me. The entire home buying process is extremely bureaucratic and expensive. I understand that there's more paperwork than just buying a car due to property tax and all that. That's not a big deal. The fact it took me 30 days, almost on the dot, to finally get accepted and file the paperwork, find the title, get a hold of everyone that needs to get a hold of. 30 days. It should have taken 2 weeks max. And property tax is a completely different topic that we'll have to get into some other time. It's insanity. Why should I have to continue paying taxes on something I purchased with money that was already taxed and that was taxed during the buying process? People always say, what about the roads? What about the schools? What about the parks? I already have payroll tax going to the schools. Fuel tax pays for the roads. Also, registering a vehicle pays for the roads, but I digress. That is a subject for a video for the future. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It would really help me out. If you have your own home buying woes, please let me know in the comments.